submission and what it's like. You do have that 48-hour extension, and most of you who have applied for it have emailed me, so that's really, really good. So if you choose to use that, again, that is fine, but just email me to let me know that you have applied for it, okay? In case it does, the notification comes in late. And I am adjusting the Turnitin so that if you have submitted earlier and want to resubmit after for that 48-hour extension, you can do so, okay? So I've made that adjustment, okay? Because I know some of you were telling me that you were having problems resubmitting, so I've made that modification to the assessment folder, okay? So no worries, but always just email me anyway if you have any issues, okay? And then always go back to the assessment sheet, the CRA, just to look at what we're assessing you on, okay? So your assessments are always marked by myself, and then it's moderated within faculty to make sure that it's consistent with QT in academic integrity as well. So there's a few rounds of assessments before your final grades are released, okay? Any questions just regarding those aspects? No? Okay. So just to go through for some of you who weren't here last week, so you've got to select 4 architectural styles, okay? So 2 within the medieval period and then 2 within the modern, okay? And then with those 2 examples, you've got to have 4, well, 1 example, so 4 examples in total to sort of explain and talk about these styles, okay? You've got to demonstrate to us in comparison between the medieval styles and the modern styles, the differences. And we talked about that last week. How do we go about discussing architectural examples? We often talk about the physical appearance. We talk about the facade. We talk about the interior. We often talk about the plans. We talk about the structure. We talk about some of those characteristics that we see physically of the building. We talk about the materials and the style characteristics, okay? So I'll go through some examples just to highlight, because I understand that not all of you are from the design discipline or spatial disciplines, so you may not be familiar with some of the terminology. So really important just to make sure that you understand some of the terminology and the vocabulary that we're trying to get you to use, and it's important to use them in your presentation, okay? And then once again, it's the QT APA style referencing, and we want you to have a minimum of 5 academic resources, okay? So it's really important. So these are some of the basic things that you need to have in order to get just a satisfactory grade, okay? Everything else is a layer on top of that, okay? So if you don't meet any of these basic sort of requirements, landscape style, title page, PDF, video, APA style referencing, 4 styles, for examples, you will not satisfactorily pass, okay? I just want to be clear with that, okay? Okay, so what are we really looking at when you're looking at this assessment? We want you to be able to describe the relevance of those styles. You want to describe the characteristics of those styles, okay, in the context of your examples. So pick examples that are really easy to talk about, that are really obvious in terms of their physical appearance, their floor planning, their style. It's really obvious, okay? They're the ones that are going to be easy to talk about, okay? And when you talk about them, you want to talk about them in context with people, events, history, and the vocabulary and terms that you use to describe them. So technical things like, you know, flying buttresses or facades or material terminology, okay? So it's really important to use those. So it demonstrates that you understand what you're reading and what you're talking about, okay? And then when you pick these styles, you obviously want to talk about the social context of what's influenced the change in this style. Why was this style prevalent or prominent in this time period, okay? So we always talk about the built environment, the design, always interconnected with culture and society and things that are happening in economy and culture at the time, okay? So everything, this is kind of everything that we've talked about throughout this whole unit up until now. Okay, so everything you want to scaffold and build on everything that you've learned and understood so far. Okay. So once again, all right, so 2 styles from the medieval era and 2 from the modern, okay, and then 2 examples to highlight that, okay. So I've just listed on the right-hand side some examples, okay. You're more than welcome to use other styles, but please, just as long as you have good examples and describe what they are, that's really important, okay? So I put some of those styles on there because I understand that not all of you are from the spatial discipline. So you may not be familiar with some of the really obvious styles that were happening during that modern era and the medieval era, okay? So some of the ones that we touched upon that I've listed are also, the Romanesque. So, some of you may be using it a lot. So you'll find a lot of the medieval examples will be churches because religion and Christianity was very prevalent in the medieval period. So you'll probably look at a lot of churches and use a lot of examples that relate to religion. So that's understandable. So the Romanesque period. Okay, so these are some examples. You're more than welcome to find your others and your own, as long as you understand what the style is and what you're talking to. Okay. The Gothic style. Okay. So the Reims Cathedral is very popular to talk about in terms of the Gothic style. So that could include French Gothic, that could be English Gothic, that could be German Gothic. So as long as it fits within that Gothic realm style, that is suitable. Okay. Pick elevations, pick photographs that show the inside, pick photographs that show plans. So anything that helps to communicate what you want to talk about. Okay. Similarly, the Baroque, and Rochelle has mentioned that before. So yeah, I will accept Baroque. It was kind of that in-between sort of style, but happy to accept that as well, okay? The neoclassical as well. Art Deco, very easy examples to talk about. Many examples of Art Deco around the world. So you only need to talk about one. So pick a really good example and you talk about the features, okay? Talk about the characteristics of the building that define it as being Art Deco. You can also do a quick introduction of a definition of your style as well. That helps to introduce it. The Bauhaus, which is the School of Art and Architecture, Walter Gropius, so very, very well-known school, and many sort of built examples related to the Bauhaus School of Arts. Modernist period as well, so Le Corbusier, which I mentioned last week, very renowned for his work in the modernist period and possibly deconstructionist period as well. Functionalism. So, any of those sorts of styles that help illustrate what you want to talk about in terms of the style and the modernist era. So materiality, the space planning, the way people lived, etc. And that's one of his other famous Villa Savoy in France. So yeah, those are just some really quick summaries of some styles and examples that you might want to use in terms of your PowerPoint. Okay, were there any questions with the assessment and what you need to do? Because I was going to share some examples from last year. Any questions while I'm doing that? Okay, let me just go back to let's see. Is there a maximum amount of slides we can have in our PowerPoint? Look, I will show you some of the examples today. I would say there should be a minimum of at least 2 to 3 slides per example. Okay, so obviously 2 minimum, because you want to show a facade and then maybe you want to show an interior or a floor plan, if that makes sense. Okay, so if it's a minimum of 2 slides and you have 4 examples, okay, so times 4, all right, if that makes sense. So anywhere between 8 to 10 slides within, you may combine them, but I will show you those examples just so you get a good idea. Okay, so referencing is the same with the PowerPoints, because PowerPoints are kind of digital, they're Word documents. You still want to use the same APA style of referencing, and I'll show you those examples. Okay, so let me just upload that on. I'll just upload a couple of, well, actually, yep, I'll upload some examples. And then, so they're just taking a few minutes to share. Okay, let's have a quickie look. So I would ask that you don't copy or screenshot these ones for privacy issues, okay? So, right. Are you able to see that? Historical eras and architectural styles? Okay, perfect. So a really simple title page, okay, introducing what the assessment is about. Let me just reduce it, it's probably a bit big. Okay. Contents, this is unnecessary, the content page, but more than happy for you to have this in there as you talk through your slides. So I understand medieval era, modern era, okay. She's listed her styles, which is great, 1, 2, 3, 4. And she's listed the examples of her building. So they are to be only architectural examples. No fashion, no product design, no graphics. It's architectural examples only. Okay, so she's listed her examples and styles. Okay, and she starts off with the medieval era and her first style. So she lists, as always, the characteristics. Okay, characteristics. So see how she's done this referencing? Figure 1.1, the name of it, and then a note at the bottom which tells me where it's been sourced from. So some of you are still not quite completing that. So that is the exact way to reference an image, okay? So make note. Using annotation and arrows to show me features about this structure. So once again, I said you can use a floor plan, you can use a photograph of the outside. So always talk about the characteristics and the features about that style and example, okay? So talk about the entry, talk about the materials, talk about the importance of that building and why it was important and done in that style. So even the text where she's in text referenced it, it is of that APA style referencing, okay? Next example is Gothic. She's chosen the Notre Dame, which unfortunately burnt down a couple of years ago. So she's combined a couple of her slides all together. So I said minimum of 2. She could have spread this out over 2 slides, but she's decided to squeeze it on. So I think always just, do your best as long as you cover the information required. Okay, so she's got a few images on here to cross correlate. So the section and the plan, some design features within the rose windows and the stained glassing, the flying buttresses, which was a structural significance, particularly for the Gothic and Notre Dame. and also an external feature of the building as well. Talks about the construction of when it was built, how it was built. There probably could be a little bit more definitions in terms of the characteristics here. The modern era, which is postmodernism, she's decided to do Sydney Opera House. Okay, and once again, she's combined everything on the one slide. So an outside of the Opera House, significant features about the Opera House. Sorry, my internet crashed. So hopefully you were able to still see. Can you hear me now? I might turn my video cam off in case there's too much that the computer doesn't like. So hopefully that'll still share. So yeah, as I said, talk about the physical characteristics. So obviously from these examples, you see there's an outside photograph, there's a section or plan, or there's an interior photograph to talk about the style. And there's a definition of what postmodernist modernism is in all of those sorts of styles and explanations. Okay, so her next example is functionalism. So another definition of what functionalism is, some examples. So talking about the linearity, the verticality of it, structures and things like that. So once again, probably would have helped to have floor plans in this example. So I think it's really important to just be really specific about which images that you use to describe your example. The conclusion, a quick summary. And then the references, okay? Okay, so that's just one example. Let me show you another example. So that's just only one way of doing it. Obviously, everyone's slightly different. So this is the second example, medieval and modern. Probably good to have the student number on there. The styles, French Gothic, Romanesque, Bauhaus, and the modern international style. Really nice, clean background. So this one's probably a lot more informative, I have to say. This one probably rates a bit higher in terms of the information. So this one lists out the physical characteristics of what is significant about the medieval French Gothic, a definition, and then illustrated annotation to accompany the photograph, and when it was built, what the example is, etc. Okay. Medieval Romanesque, similar, some features, the inside of it, the outside of it, a quick definition, um, so that it's easy for you to talk about. Okay, so obviously these slides are more informative and helpful for you to sort of have to talk to and over. Okay, so you've got to think about, you know, the type of person you are and how you talk about things and how you remember things. So have a bit of practice. Okay, so the Bauhaus building, which I shared before, examples could have probably used a floor plan or an interior as well, but it summarizes, you know, the flat roof, the smooth facades, the cubic shapes and colors, when it was built, etc., etc. Okay. The Modern International probably could have used a couple more images. I would say a minimum of 2 images is preferred to fully actually talk about some of the characteristics. Okay, so quick definition, what it is, some physical characteristics. So one of the outside, one of the inside, okay, is preferable. So reference list once again. Okay. So you'll see that these slides are anywhere between 8 to 10. So it depends on how you want to set out your slides and discussions. So those are some of the new ones. And then these are some of the ones from last week, which I wanted to share. Someone's just taking a bit of time to share. Okay, so this one I shared last week, which I feel probably more successfully talks through the diagrams and uses a lot more imagery to talk through some of the characteristics. So Notre Dame, French Gothic. So quick definition of what French Gothic is. And definitely more successfully talks about using a couple of images, even 2 to 3, to talk about in bullet point form. So you don't have to do it in paragraphs, the bullet point form, and annotation to your diagrams of what the features are, and note how they reference it. Okay, so really important to make note of that. The next one is, oh, they've done even 4 slides, so Notre Dame inside as well. So that's even better. So one of the outside, one of the on the front side and the side, and the interior photograph. So the Romanesque, great images as well. So make sure that you pick really good images that are clear to talk about and scan them in or copy them in really well. Okay, Romanesque definition. Like how she's done this bubbling, so I know exactly what feature she is talking about. So this one actually got a 7 for their grade. Different changes in text and font color to highlight and draw my attention to the features that she's talking about. Lots of information on there. Really great analysis of the inside, using the right sort of terminology. So she did get a 7 for this one. So the Opera House as well. Definition. So as I said, the Opera House could also fall under the organic architecture as well. You'll find that some of them merge a little bit. So similar sort of thing. Talking about the design features on the outside. French functionalism. Probably could do with a lot more slides. So functionalism definition, an inside example and an outside example, but really clear in communicating information, which I think from a graphic point of view is really, really helpful. Save the link to the video in case the upload didn't work. And then the reference list, okay? And then that's probably the ones that I just want to share for now. There is a suggested structure. So this can be found in the assessment folder. So So this is just suggested, but you've seen some of the examples now. So a title page, a suggestion of how to go about, you know, 150 words in each slide and annotation. So minimum of 5 slides, okay? So nothing less than that, but it can be up to 8 to 10 as you saw, okay? With the title page, with the content page, okay? So that should be the basis. So anything less than that, anything less than the 5 slides will not be a satisfactory submission, okay? And a minimum of 150 words, okay? That's minimum, okay? And a reference list, okay? So that can be found in the assessment folder, okay? So you should have access to all of that. All right, so that's me sharing the information today. I'd love to hear what some of you have researched. We might just do it as a big group because sometimes I find the breakout groups, you go a little bit quiet um, and it takes a while to move around through the 4 to 5 groups. So is there any of you that would like to share your research of the styles? Are there any styles that anybody likes and has researched and some examples? No one wants to share their slides? Has anyone done any research? No? Let me just share that PDF that I shared last week and the week before. So getting started. What are some of the main features, styles, and examples? Okay, and what are the similar for the modern era and similar for the medieval era? Okay, so really important for you guys to share online, so it's a compare and contrast. Okay, so nobody's done some research. Are there any styles that people haven't researched but they're interested in? I know some of you shared last week. So the modernist style, Gothic, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of information on Gothic. Is there things specifically that you like about Gothic? The Notre Dame, yeah, there's going to be a lot of information on the Notre Dame. Others, what are some of the other styles? I've mentioned some of them. So it can be French Gothic, it can be German Gothic, Romanesque. There's probably a lot more examples in the modern era, which, you know, some of you should be a lot more familiar with in terms of your age demographic. There's a lot more in the modernist era. So say, for example, go to the workshop. So really important, guys and ladies. Baroque, awesome. Are there examples from the Baroque? The Renaissance? Yes, absolutely. So, you know, really important to openly discuss. It's good practice to talk in front of your colleagues or use the chat sort of icon to discuss some things. I understand, you know, being online, it can be really, really tricky with technology and things, and people are a little bit shy, but really important to participate in terms of, you know, the actual conversations in your tutorials to get you going. So, you know, some of you are talking about the Gothic, so that could be French or it could be German, Romanesque, Renaissance. There's a lot to talk about in terms of Art Deco, great examples. Brutalist, modernism, even deconstructivism, organic, postmodernist. There are lots of examples of those which I shared in these slides. Okay, so really important that you share your research, even if it's just interest so far of styles. Okay, so some of these are really, really well-known examples um, that you can research. A lot of in Art Deco, um, Bauhaus, modernist style, a lot in the modern style, particularly Le Corbusier, and some of, postmodernists, like Robert Venturi. So a lot of examples that you can take away from these slides. Okay, so deconstructionism also. Okay, some of you spoke about this last week. Are some of you still thinking about doing it? No, hopefully you're going to share and be more active in the tutorials. Yes, I know some of you are really shy and reserved, but really important to speak out. So Rochelle has put, I have chosen French Gothic. I found that large stained glass windows, pointed arches, vaulted ceilings, flying buttresses are some of the main features. The example I chose is Chartres Cathedral. Yeah, that's great, Rochelle. Absolutely. You've mentioned all the main ones that I would probably mention with French Gothic, or in particular with German Gothic as well. So in general, so like always, do a quick definition. Always do a definition of the style. Introduce introduce your example. Oh, terrible spelling. Introduce your example, date, place. Always the date and place of where it was built, um, physical characteristics. Okay, so we always talk about the physical characteristics. So that's to do with elevations and interiors. Okay, so I would like to see a minimum of 2 images per example. A minimum of 2 images per example. Okay, so whether that's the exterior, plan, and or interior. Okay. Exterior photograph, a plan, and or an interior photograph. Okay. Some other features, materials. As I understand, all of you are in the spatial materials, structure. Any design features, spatial planning. I'm just listing out some of the elements that we often talk about when we're analyzing buildings. So materials, structure, design features, spatial planning, lighting sometimes, color, and form. Okay. So the form relates to the shape, whether it's a dome or it's a gable. So any of those sorts of aspects we apply to analyzing a building, okay? So I want you to use some of those key areas to categorize some of your analysis for the buildings, okay? I was hoping that more of you would be sharing and discussing your amazing styles that you're interested in. But I see that everyone's still a little bit shy, and so I can't stress enough the importance to just engage and talk in class and not to be shy about it. because sometimes, by talking it out, it actually helps you to understand how you could do your assignment better. Okay. Was there anyone that wanted to share on that note? Everyone's all really quiet and shy. No, I just wanted to share the last video, which is Iris Van Herpen, Naturalis Museum. I think it's design. Just give me a few minutes. I think it was the building video. So I shared the first one, which was about where architecture is heading in terms of, when we look at design history, we're learning from the past, but also how do we look into the future of designing. And I often focus on architecture, but obviously that applies to all areas of design because designers do play a huge part in how we build the built environment. So let me just find that video while I'm here. Let's have a look. Let's just try to find the video. Okay. Since some of you are still really shy about talking, so I wanted to share this video. So this one's in regards to a collaboration with fashion. So this is where the future of fashion is kind of heading as a difference to the one that I shared about architecture. Okay, so let me just share my screen. So hopefully you can all see that when I share.
I collaborate within my work with architects. In a way, the knowledge that lies within architecture is very useful for material development on the smaller scale. So really translating techniques on the larger scale into fine textures of fabrics. My crystallization collection was my first time I collaborated with
PDF. So the L5, which is the lecture 5 on house styles, that will give you a quick summary and definition of how you could apply and look at design styles for those who need a refresher and aren't familiar with spatial disciplines and things like that. Okay, so categorizations of what styles are, what do they mean? They always share a really big idea that summarizes that style, and there's always particular frameworks and methodologies to do with that style, and obviously accompanying that is physical characteristics that feature prominently in those built styles and examples, and specific materials that they use in that design style. So this was compiled by my colleague Aso. So theories about the styles as well. So this PDF is probably more important in terms of how you can go about talking about styles, whether it's modernist, postmodernism. These are some of the areas and things that you need to mention, okay? So definitions, etc. Okay, so places where you can go and source. How do I define and how do I go about giving a definition for a style? Okay, so this document is really, really handy. So it is in this week 10 folder. Okay, so in tutorials. Okay, it'll talk about some of the characteristics that I mentioned already, which is spatial planning, the shape and the form of the building, materials and structure, colors, textures, details. So these are some areas you will want to mention about your styles, which Rochelle shared as well. So some of the physical characteristics of, the Gothic style. Okay, so quick overview and some of the terminology, okay, and some listing of styles if you are not familiar with spatial design. Okay, so definitely go through here. Okay, have a look at this PDF to go through. Okay, so this is a really important one to go through and understand some of the quick terminology around those styles. Okay, only use what you need from here. Okay, so if you're doing Art Deco, you're looking at Art Deco definitions. Okay, some examples. Okay, so remember, we're only using architectural built examples, so no furniture. Okay, but it gives you an understanding of what influences were happening at the time. Okay. And the reasons behind it, because of materials, technology at the time, different values, all sorts of things. So the distill was also very prominent in the modernist period as well. So great examples here of Art Deco. Modernism, Bauhaus, Walter Gropius, Mies van der Rohe, Le Corbusier, Alva Aalto, Chloe, really interesting to see how things are all connected and integrated. Mid-modern century, mid-century modern. So really helpful if you're looking at futurism, functionalism, postmodern. Some people critique and say that we're still in the postmodernist era. Okay, so some really good reference books there, okay, for those struggling to find information. Okay, so hopefully you were able to see that. I'm going to stop sharing. Were you able to see that document? So that's all in week 10 folder, okay? So that's in the week 10 folder, okay? So I was hoping that there would be more of you sharing, but it looks like, you know, everyone's still a bit shy and things like that. So I probably shared enough information to get you really started on this assessment, okay? So by next week, really would love to hear some research on styles, okay, and some examples, okay? I'll have to go back into the breakout groups, it looks like, to get you everyone sharing and things like that. So please start researching, start putting information together, get really good examples of the styles, and start putting it into a PDF, PowerPoint, okay, sorry, not PDF, but PowerPoint. Even if you haven't finished researching it, start getting your layout and format organized so you can leave a space where you go, okay, I'm gonna have a photograph there, but that I'll come back to that. Start doing the presentation and just leaving space and information for stuff to come and fill in, okay? Any questions regarding that, everything that I've shared today? Do we upload the recorded video as a OneDrive link or PDF once? So it should be a OneDrive link when we're submitting. So if I go to, I'll share my screen again, and we'll go to share screen, link, share screen, and I'll go over to the assessments, and I go to assessment 3. So it should show you a video of how to use Echo.
Okay, so this video has been put together to assist with how to create a Blackboard assignment for an individual student video submission for a piece of assessment, and it's looking at using the Echo 360 mashup tool. On the screen you can see that there's a document that's been created, and the idea is to go through all the steps in the document to set up the Blackboard assignment so that it's set up and has adequate instructions. You can see the yellow highlighting there are the steps for the students and how to get started on that. I'll also just note that to do this, if you haven't used the Echo 360 mashup tool before, it does need to be turned on in the site. So just to give you an idea of how to alter the instructions to enable the student to be able to upload their video plus their PowerPoint. Let's go through that. So you follow the instructions to set up the assignment, and I've got one that I've prepared here earlier called Testing Student Echo 360 Submissions. So just clicking on that link, that's going to open the submission area for the student. Now, for them to be able to upload the video file, they do that by clicking on Write Submission, and they will access this mashup drop-down, and you'll just follow the instructions in the document. So they do that first. So that takes them through a few steps. They need to follow the prompts, and it will allow them to upload the video. So once they've done that, the video will be in this box here. So once that's completed, the additional thing you want them to do is you want them to then upload the PowerPoint file, and you simply do that by go browse my computer, find the PowerPoint and upload it to there. And after they've completed that, they will then hit submit. So it is as simple as doing that. What you'll find is when it comes time to do the marking, you can access their 2 pieces of assessment, or the 2 parts through Grade Centre, just by going into where it says Needs Grading.
So hopefully that was helpful, Rochelle. It's important just to upload your actual video up there. I know some people like to share a link to a OneDrive. Some people upload a video via YouTube. So I think it's really whatever is easiest for you and works. But as long as you submit the video with you doing the recording and your PDF slides. Does that make sense? So when you record yourself, it's important to have you in the video as well, okay? Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome. Perfect, yeah. So only a PDF of your PowerPoint slide, okay? I don't want to see PowerPoint live file in there. It has to be PDF version of it, okay? No more questions? I was hoping that there were going to be more people sharing and discussing about their amazing research and things like that. So that will have to be postponed till next week, but no excuses next week, okay? We may finish the session a bit earlier today, okay? So good luck. And as always, you know, just email me if you have any issues regarding the submission, any of the content and things like that, okay? And have a really good rest of the day, okay? Bye. 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 Have a really great rest of the day.